For today's video, let's explore some Asian literature, particularly in the part of Middle East. Today, we are going to discover the unique literature of Hebrew, Egypt, and Israel. But before that, let's have a short tour at Middle East. So Middle East is located in Southwestern Asia and Northeastern Africa, with 18 countries varying in religions and ethnic and linguistic abundance. Religion in totality plays a large part in the rhythm of daily life, not only through prayer and study, but also in determining the end of the work. It contains 65% of the world's oil reserves, considered as the modern world's most strategically, economically, politically, and culturally sensitive area, as it possesses huge stacks of crude oil. The multiplicity of languages spoken in Middle East reflects its ethnic diversity. Middle Easterners value family so much. Middle East is the birthplace of two of the greatest monotheistic religions in the world. The Middle East prides itself on the two of the greatest literary outputs ever produced by any civilization, young and old. It was called the Bible of Christianity and the Quran of Islam. Now let's proceed to our journey in the Hebrew literature. Hebrew literature comes from the English word Hebrew, which comes from the Old French derived from the Latin word Hebrews. Hebrews were ancestors of Samaritan and Jew. Jews were the descendants of the Hebrews, and Hebrews claim to be the descendants of biblical patriarch known as Abraham. So Hebrews lived in the ancient Middle East around 1400 BC. They settled in Canaan, formerly known as Israel, the country of the eastern coast Mediterranean Sea, the territory of modern Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. Hebrew is the member of the Canaanite group of Semitic languages. Hebrews lived in tents. Wealthier people lived in the houses built from sand-tried mud bricks, and the roof of the houses were flat. The church of the Hebrew was called Jerusalem Temple. It was the first temple built by King Solomon, and it was covered with gold. Hebrews wears fringes, a garment that has an edge, and ticklet ribbon. Hebrew literature consists of ancient, medieval, and modern writings in the Hebrew language. It was one of the primary forms of Jewish literature. It was produced in many different parts of the world throughout the medieval and modern eras. Now let's take a look at ancient Hebrew literature. It begins with the oral literature of the Lashon HaKodesh, or the Holy Language. The most important work of ancient Hebrew is the Hebrew Bible, named Tanakh. On the other hand, Mishnah is the primary rabbinic codification of law as derived from the Torah. It was written in Mishnaic Hebrew. Next, we have medieval Hebrew literature. Majority of Jewish and Hebrew was composed of Islamic North Africa, Spain, Palestine, and Middle East. Many works of medieval philosophical literature, such as Maimonides' Guide to the Perplexed and the Kashari, as well as many works of fiction, were written in Judeo-Arabic. One of the fiction was written in Hebrew was the Fax Fables by Berechiah ben Nachonai Hanakdan, a Hebrew fables which resemble Aesop's fable. Much medieval Jewish poetry was written in Hebrew, including the liturgical Payotem in the Palestine during the 7th and 8th century by Yosef ben Yosianai and Eleazar Clear. The liturgy was compiled in a book called the Siddur by rabbis including Amram Gaon and Saadia Gaon. Next, we have modern Hebrew literature. Modern Jews developed new forms of fiction, poetry, and essay writing, which are called modern Hebrew literature. For our second stop, let's talk about the Egyptian literature. Cairo is the capital of Egypt. The ancient Egyptian civilization lasted for more than 300 years, longer than any other civilization in human history. They believed that there was a life after death and that a dead person's body should be preserved and buried in a tomb with everything he would need in the life after death. Egyptians were ruled by kings and queens who were believed to be their gods. Many of them built temples to commemorate the important events of their reigns. Hatshepsut was the first female pharaoh and ruled for 4 years. She focused on architecture. Ancient Egyptians depend on the waters of the Nile River, which flows through a harsh and narrow desert. Only the land of the lands could be cultivated to support life. Egyptian was the first people to develop a system of writing called hieroglyphics. Now let's talk about the periods of Egyptian literature. First, we have the Old Kingdom. It's around 3100 BC. Egyptian used papyrus. It is a tall perennial grass which ancient Egypt used to write on. Next, we have the First Intermediate Kingdom, wherein coffin text was discovered. The dialogue of a man with his bow, which means soul, and a story written in coffin about their pharaoh. Next, we have the Middle Kingdom, around 2000 BC. Hymns and songs for deity and king were created, and Cleopatra was one of the most well-known pharaoh. She used her beauty to tempt some pharaoh. During the New Kingdom around 1540 BC, militaries were created. They learned how to do colonies and heroism was accepted. Next, we have Last Kingdom, wherein adventures of various magicians were revealed. Another famous things in Egypt was the Pyramid of Giza, which is situated in the immediate vicinity of the southwestern suburbs of Cairo and are the undisputable top attractions of Egypt. Here also the Great Sphinx located at the Giza Plateau, one of the largest and oldest monuments in the world. Now let's talk about the Egyptian gods and goddesses. First we have Ra. He is the god of the sun, the king of the gods. He has a falcon crowned with a sun disk or a man with a falcon's head. He is the greatest of all gods. Next we have Hathor. She is the goddess of love, music, and dance. She has cow horns and sun disk on head. She is the goddess of joy, motherhood, and love. She had another side called Shikmet. She is the goddess with a lion head. Next we have Nut. She is the sky goddess. She has blue with golden stars. She was married to the king of the gods named Ra, but she was in love with Geb. Next we have Geb, the god of the earth. He has the color of plants and fertile Nile mud. He has the earth lying beneath her. Next we have Osiris, the god of the dead. She was dressed in white with crook and flail and white crown. Her husband was Isis, the father of Horus. Next we have Seth, the brother of Osiris. He is the god of the desert, storm, and violence. He has animal head with long curved pointed snout. He carries a scepter which has his head on top and his tail at the other end. Next we have Horus. He is the son of Isis and Osiris. He was portrayed as a hawk or a man with a hawk's head and the crown of all Egypt. Crown is made up of two parts. The white part is the crown of Upper Egypt in the south, and the red part is the crown of the Lower Egypt, including the Nile Delta. Next we have Isis. She is the wife of Osiris and the mother of Horus, queen of goddess. She has a throne or sun disk and horns on her head. She is a great healer and a magician. She got her magic powers by tricking Ra. Next we have Thoth, the husband of Ma'at. He is the god of wisdom, time, writing, and the moon. He has the head of an ibis, invented hieroglyphics, measurer of the earth, and a counter of the stars. He is the keeper and the recorder of all knowledge. Next we have Anubis, the god of embalming. He has the head of a jackal. He invented embalming to embalm Osiris, the first mummy, and guide the dead. Next we have Ma'at, the wife of Thoth. She is the goddess of justice. She has ostrich feather in her hair. She helped at the weighing of the heart, and she is the goddess of truth and harmony. Next we have Amnun, the god of creation. He crowned with ostrich feathers. He is an important god, but there are no stories about him. His name was sometimes spelled as Ammon, and his scared animal is Ram. Next we have Bastet, the daughter of Ra. She is the protectress of cats. Originally, she had the head of a lion, and sometimes she is called Bast. For our last stop, we have to talk about the Israeli literature. Israeli traditions are rooted in a synthesis of ethnic and religions, Hebrew Israelite traditions, and Israeli artists continually push the boundaries of their art forms. Now let's talk about the literature background of Israel. First, we have Hasidism during the 18th century. It was inspired by the Eastern European Jews that focused on spirituality and prayer with aim of moral teaching. Next, we have the Haskalah. It was during the 19th century. It is also known as the Hebrew Enlightenment. There was move towards the importance of reason. They know how much important reason is, and Jewish literary or cultural entrance into European society or civilization. There is new biblical style with limited vocabulary, around only 5,000 words. Next, we have the World War I during the 20th century. It was the beginning of unity of language. There was an expansion of Hebrew vocabulary and flexibility of themes, which is known as Hebrew Romanticism. So those are the different features and the unique characteristics of each literature, namely the Hebrew literature, Egyptian literature, and the Israel literature. So I hope that you have learned a lot. Goodbye and God bless. Thank you for watching.